Hello everyone. Tonight, we'll begin with the village of Deir el-Medina, built specifically for those who constructed the royal tombs during Egypt's New Kingdom, 1550 to 1070 BCE. During this period, pharaohs were buried in the Valley of the Kings, not in separate pyramids like in the past. The workers here were usually highly skilled craftsmen, provided with many amenities, so they could produce more sacred greatness with fewer bathroom breaks. Only a wooden mallet, a piece of dry bread and a sore back for 22 years. You will be that person from now on. Tonight, I'll place you in the role of a tomb builder for the pharaoh, someone working under unforgiving sunlight, someone who hammers each strike onto stone walls, carving others' names, while no one ever asks what your name is. No power, no rest, no being remembered. Pause. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you truly enjoy what I'm doing here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fun to see who's joining us from around the world. Now, turn off the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for some soft background noise. You're not waking up. You're being woken by someone cursing in ancient Egyptian. After stepping on your foot, you open your eyes. In front of you is your co-worker's left heel. Behind you, his right heel. The air in the room is thick like ash porridge, a blend of human scent, stove ash, damp goat skin, and yesterday's disappointment that still hasn't aired out. You're in Deir el-Medina, a small village built for craftsmen carving noble tombs. Sounds fancy, but in reality, it's a row of small, crumbling rooms crowded, set in the middle of the desert, about a day's walk and 3 days' worth of complaining from Thebes. What you're lying on isn't a bed. It's a packed dirt floor with old straw torn cloth and maybe a leftover sheep bone from dinner. You curl up, but can't, because right beside you is Uncle Baki's back, snoring all night like he was cursed by the god Seth. And to your right is the youngest boy in the group, asleep with a chisel stuck to his hand, still mumbling axis of Horus, off axis of Horus. And you dreamt of being a priest, had a long white robe, had a private room, had an ostrich feather fan. But when you wake up, you're still you, and you still haven't found your left sandal, because someone peed exactly where you left it. The room has no window, only a small slit on the south wall, where the wind sneaks in like it's also looking for a place to sleep. The first light doesn't come from the sun, but from a flickering oil lamp someone secretly lit early, shaky as weak as the supervisor's promise of maybe an extra lunch next month. You hear something, unsure if it's a cough or a rooster. Could be both at the same time from the same person. The air is thick like ash. Porridge, early air isn't cold. It's sticky. A layer of sweaty dust from dozens of bodies piled together since last night. Someone turns over. The straw mat cracks like a broken wrist. Someone else sits up head wrapped because their hair got stuck with resin. Someone sneezes. The air freezes like a funeral. The person on the left takes a step back. The one on the right wraps their scarf. The one behind mutters, "May Sekhmet protect us. Let it be just sand, not plague." Sekhmet is the goddess of plague and fire. No one wants to mess with her even just after waking up. Outside, a rooster fights a dog. You're not sure who won, but the final cry sounds like cluck cluck. Woof. In this room, no longer than 8 steps you live with. The cast of a nameless but relentless drama. Who are they? When I was young, I argued with a stone god. What happened after? I forgot. Probably one. Barky is the oldest in the crew. High cheekbones, sharp eyes, beard like a temple mop. He once carved Horus wrong as Hotus and survived, because the supervisor couldn't read either. Every morning he pours beer into a jar, lid inhales deep and announces, "I drink this to block the sun, not for fun." No one dares argue, because he keeps a hammer, even when asleep. Don't be fooled by her small braids and soft voice. Nefru can paint Sobek in 3 strokes, and paint disdain on your face just as fast. If any of you touch my painting with your hammer, I'll turn you into the wall and carve you myself. She has 3 brushes, 1 jar of lapis ink as precious as gold, and a glare that makes everyone remember Maat stands behind her. She once painted the pharaoh's name wrong, but turned it into the god of wind passing through humility. The entire temple believed it. She lived on. Pashi is 17, has a crooked smile, used to dream of playing harp in the palace. Now he hammers rock, hammers pain, hammers reality, hammers anything as long as it's not real life. Catchphrase. When stone says clack, it's singing. When I say ow, I missed. He's a dreamer. Once while eating rice he said, "If I carve a beautiful stone and hide my name beneath it, will someone find it someday?" No one answered, but everyone remembered. Tet always carries a wooden tablet, notes every hour and every stone. No one knows where he studied, but his handwriting is beautiful and cold like dry lime. Mistake on carving, 1 mark. Coughing without permission, 1 mark. Smiling at me, 2 marks. Still, Tet has never reported anyone. He just observes and writes. And you start wondering, who is he writing for? No talking, no smiling. Always sits in the corner. Draws something on the ground with a finger. One night someone asked what he was drawing. He said, "I'm drawing what I want to see after I die." No one asked further. You don't want to wake up, but your gut doesn't agree. You slip from the straw mat, tiptoe past 2 snoring men and 1 lady muttering anti-bloating spells. Step outside. Morning breeze hits you. You're fully awake. Not because it's cool, because it's cold. And you're wearing just a tilted wrap. Where you're headed is called a toilet. But really, it's a dirt patch fenced with broken bricks, just high enough to hide secrets. Except the most important part. In the middle is a trench, both drain and sacred site of morning decisions. You line up. Yes, that's right. Line up to go. In front of you is Tet the supervisor, still holding his wooden tablet, glaring as if you've committed a crime by peeing at the wrong solar angle. No paper, no water. Just something called the communal wipe. A strip of cotton wrapped on a stick. Vinegar soaked. Shared. Washed if remembered. People call it the wipe friend. A companion. No one wants to meet. A stonecutter just finished telling a story about his son's wedding. An old lady asking about this year's barley prices while seated on a stone. And you just want to vanish into the sand. No way to describe it. Even the god Sobek, the crocodile god of mud, would politely excuse himself. You just crouched down when a voice behind you called, "Hey, is that your left sandal from yesterday?" A goat dragged it behind the banana bush. You turn around. The person behind doesn't stop. And You now fully understand the phrase chain reaction. You return from the toilet. Head down, feet, sandy dignity dented. The room is still loud, like no one just went to the toilet. Only you came back from a small war called defending dignity in public space. You return to the room. Your stomach growls like a cat buried alive with a pharaoh. The whole group sits in a circle, not to chat, but to make it easier to divide the food with their eyes. You glance around the circle. Everyone eats like they're performing a ritual. No one speaks. Mouths are full. Hands clutching jars. Eyes gazing off like they're chewing through childhood memories. Uncle Baki takes a sip of beer and mutters, "If I die today, may Anubis grant me a breakfast like this, so I know I'm in hell." No one disagrees. No one agrees either. Only the dry swallowing sounds rise in sync, like a choir that never rehearsed. This morning's breakfast includes a piece of bread made from Emma the grain with the most husk in the universe, a small jar of beer thicker than porridge, warm like Sobek's armpit, and with a layer of foam drifting quietly like your dignity, an onion, if you're lucky. If not, you inhale the scent from the person next to you. "Eat," Baki says, "so you've got the energy to haul stone." You pick up the bread. It's as hard as uncut limestone. You try a bite. There's a crack. Unclear if it's the bread or your tooth. He eats fast, hard, and without looking at the food, like he's chewing responsibility, not bread. He tears the bread with bare hands, teeth sturdier than granite. Every swallow sounds like a door bolt snapping shut. "If you don't eat fast, you'll be eating dust later," he says. "Besides, eat slow and you start thinking. Think too much and things go wrong." You're not sure if he's talking about bread or life. Nefru eats like she's tasting pigment layers. She dips bread into beer, but not fully. She lets it soak just enough to soften. Then she turns the piece like a brush, closes her eyes, sniffs the onion, exhales through her nose, then bites. She says bread's tough, beer's sour, but at least they're real. Unlike those nobles painting lotus flowers who don't know they stink, Pashi doesn't eat. He taps the bread with his finger. Lightly tap tap like marking tempo. He nods C note. Moldy bread sounds like F sharp. Then he takes a bite and says sharp, but layered, like being watched by Anubis from a distance. No one understands, but everyone laughs. And he, though poor, eats like he's performing a morning requiem. Tet doesn't join the circle. He stands aside, notes on his wooden tablet who ate how many pieces, who forgot to clasp hands before biting, who chewed too loudly, then quietly picks the smallest piece for himself, chews 3 times, then swallows. No expression, no sound. Eating over 7 pieces heats. The blood makes handwriting sloppy. Ted doesn't wait to be asked. He explains himself. He eats slowly, very slowly. Each piece split in half. First half bitten. Second half stored in cloth as if saving it for someone. If you finish all the bread, what's left to hope for? You hear him say it, but maybe it's the wind saying it for him. It starts with Pashi mumbling while chewing his last bite. If anyone paints the god Horus with bread mash on the wall without getting caught, I'll give them half my beer tonight. The whole room looks up. Everyone's eyes light up, not for art, but for half a beer. Nefru smirks, says nothing. She quietly dips her bread in beer, uses the hardened tip like a brush draws on the wall near the stove. A bird with a hooked beak, round eyes, flared feathers, Horus Mini edition, in an adorably weird form. Everyone gathers to see. Pashi nods in admiration, better than the original, and probably demands fewer sacrifices. Just then Tet walks by. Silence. You can hear a fly fall into a jar. Tet stops, looks at the drawing, looks at Nefru, looks at you. He says nothing. Just writes in his tablet, wall strange damp mark. Assign repair crew this afternoon. Then walks away. As soon as he's gone, the room erupts. Someone laughs hard enough to choke on onion. Pashi high-fives Nefru. Tonight I'll bring beer, and bow before the soft Horus. You step out of the straw room. It's not yet 7 a.m., but the sun is already acting like it was insulted in a past life. The sun doesn't shine. The sun slaps down like a flaming backhand. You pull your head wrap tighter. Step onto the sand. It's so hot it feels like walking across a giant piece of toasted bread, the same kind you ate for breakfast earlier. But now it's back. For revenge. The tomb lies deep within stone in a dry valley. From afar, it's just a crack in the mountain. But once inside, you'll see endless corridors etched with sacred script. Secret rooms no one's ever been allowed into. Ceilings painted sky blue, yet cursed if anyone chips the paint. You work in the Eastern Forward Team, which basically means the ones who carve and haul stone out. This role is described on the assignment sheet as requires strength, skill, perseverance, and the ability to stay silent in the face of injustice. A wooden mallet with a broken handle tied together with linen string. A dull chisel chipped at the tip, once blessed by a stoneworker who later quit the job. A piece of cloth to wrap your hand or wipe your sweat, whichever need is more urgent. The hammer echoes like the prayer of stone. Each strike is a sigh. Everyone is drenched in sweat, bare shoulders, barefoot, eyes stinging. No one talks because talking dries the mouth faster. Far off, someone falls. Another takes their place. No questions, no complaints. Just a switch of roles like taking turns standing in the desert. You carve the word Mutt Justice Balance. That word is deep, takes 32 hammer strikes to finish. You think about justice. Then think about how you're on your second unpaid month. Justice lives on noble tomb walls, you think. And me, I live on the time card. The work doesn't start with a call, not with a trumpet, but with a first knock on stone, slow, steady, like a bell no one taught. But everyone knows. You look around. Everyone is working. Hammering like monks with prayer sticks. Chiseling like lighting incense. And sweat drips like silent prayers for a neck that won't seize up by shift's end. 5 minutes of chiseling. Each strike bounces through your hand, rattles up your shoulder. Each miss draws blood from your palm. But no one cries because a groan just echoes back from the stone like sarcasm. 1 minute to wipe sweat. With your shirt, with your hand, with your breath. Your eyes squint not for focus, but because the light has your eyelids swollen like the sun kicked your face. 3 seconds to look at the sky, not for inspiration, but to ask yourself, if I die here, will my name be carved somewhere? Then you look down again and keep hammering. You don't remember how many characters you've carved. You only remember the feeling of the stone softening, not because your hammer got stronger, but because your hand is so numb, you no longer know what you're carving. Someone once said if you chisel the same symbol 500 times, you'll see it move. Like it's alive, like it's grinning good. Now you're part of me. You pause. Press your cheek against the newly carved stone. It's still warm, not from the sun, but because it just drank all your strength. You don't know what you're creating. A tomb, a curse, or maybe just a big box to hold a tiny dream of someone who never asked if you wanted to join. You're carving the word Ra Sun God. Simple character, 2 symbols. You've carved it over 100 times, but today your hand slips slightly. The circle that represents the sun goes crooked. It no longer looks like Ra. Now it looks like a winking eye, a mistake big enough to cost you your dinner or your right to exist. You freeze. Pashi beside you pants. Nefru frowns, glances over like you just etched her mother's name wrong on a tomb. Everyone knows the rule, miswrite a god's name. It's an insult to the god. Miswrite the pharaoh's name. It's like wishing him a second death. You quietly dip the brush in red ink. Draw a swirl around the messed up glyph. Nefru steps forward. She clears her throat. On behalf of the carving team, we correct this engraving. This symbol is not a mistake. It is a new mark Ra's eye when he closes it at night to dream of victory. Pashi claps gently. Supervisor Tet glances at his wooden tablet, writes one line Ra, minimalist version. No one says more. You wipe your sweat and continue carving. In this job, there's no room for mistakes. Only mistakes no one sees, or mistakes you, turn into mysterious messages. You're not an artist. You're a storyteller with a hammer. And sometimes the best story is the one that missed, then became myth. You stop, not because the work's done, but because your hand is so numb. You didn't notice the chisel drop. You lean against the wall. The stone you just hammered still warm under the sun. You close your eyes, not from fatigue, but because you fear opening them to see 3 new blocks untouched. And then you do something no stoneworker is ever taught to do. You rest your cheek against the rock. The stone is really warm, not from the sun, but because you just gave it hundreds of strikes, dozens of breaths, and a few muttered prayers begging Ma to spare your throbbing wrist. You feel it breathing, not like a living person, but like a lifeless thing that just absorbs someone's soul. Maybe yours. You think, what am I doing? Then where will I be buried? Then this tomb is too big. Is there a small corner where I could carve my own name? You open your eyes, see a fly land on your hammerhead. You nod gently at it as if in solidarity. You stand up, pick up your hammer, and begin again. Not because anyone made you, not because of the gods, just because if you don't hammer, no one will know you were ever here. You're ordered to move to the main chamber, where the ceiling is painted and sacred symbols carved. Entering it, you feel like you've died and been buried inside the dream of someone too rich and too convinced of life after death. Every wall is twice your height. The ceiling painted blue. Lapis lazuli blue, a precious stone powder that ordinary people must sell 3 cows just to look at. Above are dozens of gold stars, not hand-painted, but dotted with a bird feather brush blessed with sacred charms. Anyone who drops the brush during painting gets transferred to the team that digs graves for dead pets. At the center of the room is a massive palm-shaped stone column. symbolizing the axis of the sky, and at the end of the corridor a platform where the pharaoh's body will be placed. You look around. No one speaks. All heads are bowed, not out of respect, but because they're scared of sneezing and chipping off a sacred flake of paint. Uncle Baki leans in and whispers, "The one who lies here only lies once." We go in, carve, paint, wipe, then get kicked out 1,000 times. Pashi walks by, accidentally leaves a footprint. A guard frowns. Pashi bends down, turns it into the footprint of the god Anubis departing the body. The guard nods. The whole crew exhales. You're ordered to carve a fake corridor. You're ordered to carve a fake corridor, meant to deceive tomb robbers. That is, you'll spend 3 months building a hallway that leads nowhere, serves no purpose, just so. No one sees the real one. It takes you 29 days. The wall is 2 meters high, 12 meters long, big enough to fit 3 tomb robbers and a sacred bull if needed. You carve into it 24 sacred symbols: snake bird, lotus, eye of God. Each must be proportionate, spiritually aligned, tuned to the right metaphysical fear. You work as if this corridor were real, you'd be buried in it. But no, it's a dead end, and you'll move on to another corridor, also a dead end. Pashi mutters, "If the traps are to trick tomb robbers, why not trick the pharaoh too? Save the extra building." Baki answers without lifting his head. The pharaoh invented the traps. No one dares trap the one who made the traps. You're not sure if that makes sense, but amidst the hammering and dry coughs, it feels right. You stand at the end of the fake corridor, looking at the wall you just finished. Beautiful, detailed, superstitious, and no one will ever see it. No living person, no pharaoh, not even you after getting moved to the next foundation digging zone. You knock gently on the wall. The sound echoes like a hollow bell. I live, I build, I haul stone. But in the end, no room is ever mine. The first chamber you enter, as wide as your dream house, granite floor, gilded and lacquered walls. On them 12 shelves to hold the pharaoh's liver, lungs, stomach and small intestine. You look at the ebony shelf with lion paw golden legs, then recall your own bed, 4 bricks a straw mat, and a mouse that's too friendly. The pharaoh's intestines are better cared for than my living self. You exhale, not angry, just a little choked. The next room has a marble pedestal waiting for the statue of Osiris. The statue is 2 meters tall, eyes inlaid with gems, and it has a headrest carved from ebony in the shape of lotus petals. You've never had a pillow. You've slept on your forearm since you were 12. The god gets a pillow. I have an arm. Tet has a punishment board. You walk into the final chamber. Nothing but 25 giant jars filled with premium beer, scented water, lotus oil, honey, and 1 jar full of gold-plated lotus seeds. These are for the pharaoh to use after death. Dead and still gets to drink fine beer. And me, alive but only get stuff sourer than Tet's face on a Monday. You step into the ceiling painting room, where murals are painted with pigments worth nearly as much as blood, and by those who gave their own blood to buy sacredness. Blue from crushed lapis lazuli, red from hematite, white from gypsum. People have swallowed red ink so the god may enter, then fainted. Nefru is painting the eye of Horus on the ceiling. She's lying on her back, arm raised, neck arched, breathing through her nose, trembling, not daring to blink. "Are you still breathing?" you ask softly. "I'm not daring to," she replies, hand still painting. Young apprentice Kenty mispaints. The sun eye grows teeth. Pashi shouts, "Horus has grown teeth." Kenty falls off the scaffold, breaks his arm. Tet writes worker 3C deactivated. Suggest transfer to water-carrying team. You look again at the painting. Flawless, divine, anonymous. No one remembers who held the brush. Only the god. And silence. You walk to work every day on a narrow trail. On both sides are sheep bones, dried goat droppings, and the scent of a dream once called day off. You enter the tomb, and before you is the passage to the main room, where the pharaoh's coffin will rest. The floor is polished limestone. Walls carved with dragons, lotuses, sacred beasts. The ceiling painted like sky. Golden stars glowing on a lapis blue background. The pharaoh's body walks it once. I walk it hundreds of times, yet still get marked late by Tet. You glance at your feet. Sand clings, heels cracked, feet stink. You look up. Stars on the ceiling, perhaps painted with blood from someone like you. The living walk on roads built for the dead. The dead get to live in a road no living ever fully walks. You don't hear anyone say end of morning shift. Just see your hammer fall from your hand, silently, like a leaf. And you know it's time to break or faint. Lunchtime isn't measured by hours. It's measured by how long until your hand stops trembling. How long until your head stops hearing clack clack, even after you put down the hammer. How long until you forget that soon you'll have to strike again into a stone harder than your fate. You find a shaded spot. Not real shade, just someone large enough sitting in front of you to block the sun. A slab of rock, a rolled cloth sack, your left arm under your head, while your right arm clutches the hammer like an emotional debt too hard to repay. You lay down. Your back makes a cracking sound. You're not sure if it's the floor or your spine. You close your eyes. At first, it's just the wind whispering into your left ear. But slowly, it becomes a stream. No more dust, no more stone. No one shouting swing harder. Just a blue sky. And you standing in front of a blank white wall. On it is your name. Not the pharaoh's, not a god's, but your real name. 3 letters carved deep, beautiful and glowing. You walk up, touch it. The letters are warm like fresh plaster, like someone just carved it thinking of you. You smile, but no sound comes out. Only light rises from the ground, and your mother's voice, you haven't heard it since age 6, echoes from a crack in the stone. Finally, someone spelled your name right. You want to cry. But then, Get Up Gate 3 is short on people. You spring up, eyes stinging, legs numb, mouth still mumbling. My name. How is it spelled again? You turn back toward the wall from your dream. Only see stone, hard cracked and with no space left for any name to be carved. You're just dozing again after a dream with your mother. Your name a faint light and a stream that doesn't exist in Egypt. Then beside you, Nefru exhales softly, not like a tired sigh, but like someone thinking of what no one here is allowed to think. You don't open your eyes, but you hear her speak, very softly, as if afraid Tet would write it on his wooden board if he knew she was thinking differently. If I die during a nap, Will I be buried in the tomb I helped paint? The question floats like a hair falling in sand. You don't know how to answer, because no answer is light enough to not break the tiny hope lying in her voice. So you just pull your shirt over your eyes and whisper only one thing at least. The wall remembers your hand. You're not sure she heard, because right after both of you fall silent, but not sad, just silent, and the wind blowing through the stone crevice sounds like someone nodded. Evening drapes over the valley like a hot blanket over your back. Though you no longer have the energy to feel anything, the hammer still strikes, the chisel still echoes, sweat still drips onto the stone, as if you're pouring your soul into a project no one asked if you volunteered for. You're assigned to paint the ceiling of the final burial chamber. This room no one is allowed to set foot in once it's completed. Here the pharaoh's coffin will rest, along with more than 300 small statues, hundreds of jars of perfume, and all the hopes he didn't have time to realize while alive. You look at the unfinished mural, a scene the pharaoh walking into Duat, the afterlife, arms outstretched behind him, 42 gods nodding in greeting. You know you are the one who carved that horizon line. But you also know, once it's finished, your name will be erased from the records. Not because you did wrong, but because no one needs to remember who built the sky for someone who wants to look at it forever. Today's final task is cleaning the room, not sweeping or wiping walls, but erasing traces. You see Tet walking along the edge of the wall, where you and Pashi. You see Tet walking along the edge of the wall, where you and Pashi had used charcoal to note the paint diagram, lighting direction, and scene sequence. Each mark was a way to remember you were ever here. But Tet doesn't look at them. He just bends down, picks up a small rough stone, and silently scrubs each mark away. No words, no thank you, no nod. Only the sound scritch, 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 like skin being erased from memory. Pashi looks at you. You look at Nefru. No one says a word, only a soft blink. The kind of blink from someone who doesn't want to look anymore, but also doesn't dare look away. We've finished, Baki whispers. But the wall doesn't need to know that. You know the reason. The tomb is sacred. No mortal fingerprints allowed. No one may know who built it. No witness to death may remain once death is deified. You understand, but understanding doesn't make it hurt less. You quietly take a straw still stained with ink, rub it across your hand, as if to erase the name faintly printed in your palm for weeks. Nothing left, no one, no trace. You sit down, back resting against the stone slab just painted. It's still warm, because you were the last to touch it with living hands. You place your hand on the wall. This spot is brighter. The paint is still fresh. You just finished painting the pharaoh crossing the sky gate. Beautiful, sacred, glorious. Then you look down at your hand. Cracked, darkened, dirty. Nothing glorious. You whisper, unsure if it's to yourself or to the wall. If I died here, right now, beneath the ceiling, I just painted the sky for someone else. Would anyone carve my name somewhere? No answer. The wall doesn't speak. The wind doesn't blow. Only a fly lands on your foot, then flies away as if it too didn't want to stay in a place where even memories can't remain. You think maybe my body will be carried out of here on a wooden cart down a road without stone tiles and buried somewhere no god remembers the path to. No tombstone, no name, No once carved the burial chamber for the 19th pharaoh. Just someone who once lived and once knew how to draw the eye of the god with a steady line. You stand up, dust off your hands, not because they're dirty, but because you need a reason to keep standing. Everyone fears curses, the curse of the god Seth, of the vengeful goddess Sekhmet, of disturbed mummies, but you know another kind of curse, one not written in old books, not carved on walls, no hissing threats, only a steady tapping on stone every morning for 28 years. It doesn't kill you, it doesn't turn you to ash, it just makes you do the same task over and over that no one remembers who did. Each time you carve a new line, a bit more of your spine cracks. No one sees, no one praises, but the wall looks better. And you are more bent. You don't know who's watching you. Tet doesn't need a camera. He just needs a wooden board and a memory like the god Thoth whispering in his ear. You're 1 minute late, Mark. You smiled while painting Mark. You breathed too loudly as the pharaoh passed as a statue mark. 3 marks. Ration cut. 5 marks. Transferred to water carrying. 10 marks. New job goat caretaker. And the goats here are very unfriendly. Nefru explains, you're carving the relief pharaoh in dialogue with god Ra. The sun's edge, a perfect circle, must be flawlessly aligned. Then you stop. On the bottom left edge, there's a tiny dot, very light, very faint, misaligned by 1/20 of a handspan. No one drew it. It's not in the template. It's not in the sacred symbol library. Pashi glances, whispers. That's from the previous worker. He carved this entire room, then disappeared. You look at the dot, not deep, not clear, but anyone standing here can see it, not with the eyes, but with a feeling like someone once touched that exact spot for a deeply personal reason. Who would dare erase it? What if it's a soul's last wish to stay? Baki once said. Since then, it stayed. No one talks about it. No one touches it. No one logs it. Just passed along by word of mouth. And sometimes you carve a stroke a little off, then correct it, then don't erase it well, then feel a strange peace. You exhale. Place your hand on that little dot. It's not warm, not cold. It just exists. If I get a next life, you think I'll leave a dot like that, not to be remembered by name, but so someone someday knows I once lived and once slipped on purpose. No one says it, no law writes it, but you know. At Deir el Medina, where every stone has ears, there's a silent curse. If you leave midway, you won't exist in any story. You remember someone, a name like Senu or Kaheru, once learned to draw with you at the temple of Ptah. One day he collapsed while carving the snake god, transferred to the water crew. Then another day, he disappeared. No one mentioned him. No one asked. You once asked Tet, where is he? Tet didn't look at you, just drew a line on the board. That line has been erased. You don't get breaks, can't grieve long, can't dream of anything else. If you leave the work site, you won't be named in the year-end ritual. Your ashes can't be stored in the ancestral shrine, and no statue may be built for you, because you didn't fulfill your duty to the gods. The real curse, Nefru once said, isn't dying young. It's dying before anyone remembers you were ever here. Pashi once wrote his name in the sand with his arm, then erased it with his foot, then laughed. to get used to the feeling. You said nothing, just bowed your head and kept carving, not because you fear the gods, but because you fear becoming the one no one mentions tomorrow over a mouthful of sand bread. I am not human. I am stone. I have no eyes, no mouth. But I remember your hands, trembling at first, steadier later. I even remember the first time you carved the wrong line, then quietly rubbed your finger over the mark like an apology. No one apologizes to stone, but you did that. You added one extra whisker to God's Sobek. No one noticed. I did. You dipped the ink too hard, left a small dot later. People thought it was a second sun. I knew it was a tear you dropped when your hand slipped. One day you didn't come. I waited. Not because I needed you, but because I had grown used to you touching me. Another hand replaced yours, stronger, more precise, but not as quiet. That person struck quickly, didn't pause, didn't lay a hand on me the way you used to, just carved, then left. I still looked beautiful, but I was no longer alive. I don't remember the date, because stone has no calendar. We only measure time by how faded the paint gets under the sun and how long the silence stretches at noon. That day you leaned against me, not hard, not collapsed, just part of your back resting on my surface like borrowing a breath. I am not cold, but you still shivered. I am not warm, but you still closed your eyes as if touching me was enough to allow yourself to be weak for a moment. I saw you doze off, your hand still gripping the hammer, your mouth still moving like whispering to a nameless god. A bead of sweat slid down your cheek, fell on me. I kept that drop until now. It left a stain, small, very small, but it's the only thing on my surface that no one ever repainted. No one saw that moment, only me, and I will remember it longer than the name of the pharaoh carved on the ceiling. After you, someone else came, a firmer hand, steadier rhythm, lines smooth like wind gliding over a river's surface. He didn't tremble, didn't purse his lips, didn't whisper spells between each strike. He didn't look up at me, only looked down, finished, then walked away. Like a short rain, clean even and without scent. I still looked beautiful, even more polished, every proportion perfect. But I couldn't remember his hands, couldn't recall his breath when tired, couldn't remember the midday nap where your back leaned on me without asking. He carved me, but you touched me. You weren't perfect. Some strokes were off, some carvings too deep I cracked slightly. But it was you, the only one who pressed your cheek to me when the ink wasn't dry, the one who pulled the brush back and sighed, "Oh," after drawing a slightly crooked circle. I don't know your name, but I remember the feeling when you smiled just a little while fixing a mistake with a good enough curve. The one after you made me a masterpiece. You gave me a memory. I don't have a mouth, no vocal cords. I cannot speak, but if I could, I wouldn't ask to be worshipped, wouldn't ask to be repainted, wouldn't ask anyone to wipe the dust of time from my surface. I would ask only one thing. Please don't let me forget the name. No one carved. I know your name isn't on the ceiling, not in the records, not on the offering lists, only a crooked curve, a finger-smudged ink mark, a tiny blank spot where the stroke stopped halfway and never continued. I still keep those things. Even if they repaint me, even if they carve over me, I still remember that the deepest layer of me once had someone who didn't need to carve a name to stay. If the god Thoth truly has a scroll recording all things, then may he write one line. There was a person who once touched stone with bare hands, asked for nothing, left nothing, but stone did not forget. Today, you don't see Pashi show up for the shift. You think maybe he overslept, or was punished and sent to haul water, or snuck off to bathe in the river, though his body odor from 3 weeks ago didn't suggest that. You chuckle softly, then stop, because by midday no one has mentioned Pashi. No one asks, not a single name. Uncle Baki taps his hammer on the stone. Nefru quietly repaints a smudged circle. Tet flips his wooden board draws a very thin line. Worker number 22, no longer on the list. No one stops working. You want to, but fear that if you do, you'll be the next not to be crossed out by name but crossed out in presence. You sit next to Pashi's old sleeping spot. No one looks, no one asks. The straw mat corner where he used to rest his arms while sleeping now only holds a faint indentation, like the kind of dent memory leaves when someone stayed long enough to exist. Just slightly. You glance at the low wooden ledge placed beside the clay wall. Your hand reaches into your pocket, pulls out a small chipped piece. Not a tool, but a broken shard from the mural Pashi once carved wrong. You press it gently into the wood, not hard, because there's no need, just enough to mark a tiny symbol, a crooked note, an open circle, a slanted dot. You don't know what it is, just that it reminds you of Pashi more than his actual name ever could. You don't explain, don't sigh, don't tell anyone. You just carve, then place your hand over it, softly, like patting someone on the back who left without luggage. I'll keep your spot, not to sleep, but to remember. The next morning, Tet reassigns the bed. A new person arrives. Nervous smile. Doesn't notice. You simply watch his hand settle on the bed's edge, unaware that beneath his palm is a mark no one knows how to read. You don't recall exactly what day it was, because every day here begins with dust and ends with someone softly groaning while washing their hands in the old water jar. But you remember, it was right after lunch, when everyone was still slumped on the straw like blood-pulsing stones. Pashi lay beside you, head on a torn cloth bag, arms wrapped around his chisel like holding an instrument, eyes half closed but his voice clear, the kind you only use when you're unsure someone's listening but still want the words to stay. It anyway. If someday someone asks about me, could you not tell them about that time I snapped the hammer handle, but instead tell the part where I carved Ra's name wrong, but we still laughed okay? The time you and I wiped it off with beer, and the wall looked like it got drunk too. You nod. Not because you promised, just because you didn't want that sentence to fall to the ground without someone to catch it. You thought there'd be time to answer. That later, after the construction season ended, the two of you would sit down, recall that line and laugh. But Pashi never said anything else after that afternoon. And from the next day on, no one ever questioned the space where he used to lie. That night after work, you return to the room earlier than usual. No one says anything. No one gossips. No one wonders why that straw mat still doesn't have someone new sleeping on it. Uncle Baki sits still, hand still holding a beer jar, but doesn't drink. The jar tilts slightly. Foam spills down the edge, dripping onto the ground, forming something that looks like a name never given. Nefru straightens her inkpot, aligns it with a broken brush, then sits quietly, not painting, not grinding, just running her finger along the table's edge, like she's writing a sentence, with no need for paper. No one tells anyone, but no one lies in Pashi's spot. Not because of superstition, not because it's reserved, just because we know if we lay there we won't sleep. Tet walks by, writes nothing, doesn't flip his board, just stands there for a moment, longer than usual, then walks on. You look at his shadow cast on the wall. For the first time you see it bent. You lie down, eyes open. No one snores, no one coughs, not because they're healthy, but because everyone is holding back the same feeling, losing someone we're not allowed to mourn. No drums, no weeping, only a soft breeze whistling outside the door crack, and a tiny flicker from an oil lamp someone forgot to extinguish, trembling like a question no one dares to answer. Today one person is missing, but tomorrow, will anyone remember? No one mentions Pashi anymore, but the room still remembers. You see it the next morning when someone places a bowl where he used to sit to eat. A soft sound clinks against the stone. That spot, the bowl doesn't sit evenly. It wobbles slightly, like he used to tap rhythm with his hand on the ground while humming a tune no one remembered. Nefru accidentally drops a drop of black ink on the floor. Instead of wiping it, she sighs, then draws a circle around it. No one asks. No one laughs. You know, that's how she turns a mistake into memory. You walk past yesterday's carving zone. The wall's been repainted, but if you tilt your head just right and the light shines in at the right moment, you still see a small crooked line, a leftover dot, a mark no one dared to correct. You think to yourself, maybe Pashi left just enough not to be called by name, but enough that anyone who ever touched it won't forget. You used to think when someone dies, something gets written down, a line of text, a name in a book, a wooden statue. But Pashi, he left an empty spot on the team, an unfinished nap dream, and a low note no one continued in the song you still remember the beat of. The new guy now sleeps there, sleeps deeply, snores loudly, knows nothing about the one who lay there before. You don't blame him, you just notice. His back doesn't fully press into the mat. There's still a tiny dip, just enough for someone who vanished. Not everyone who leaves is forgotten. Some people, only after they're gone, start to exist in the smallest empty spaces. You don't remember exactly when that day was. Maybe it was noon, maybe close to dusk. You just remember the sunlight slanting through the stone doorway and dust floating through the air like memory specks, not fast enough to land. Pashi was sitting hugging his knees, chewing a piece of bread hard as Tet's inner life. You had just told a very bad joke, something like, if Sobek is the crocodile god, but goes vegetarian, would it be called sacred soy sauce? You thought you said it and forgot, but Pashi laughed. Not a loud laugh, no rolling around, just a small humph, then burst out as if he punched himself in the stomach. You're terrible at mythology, but I like that kind of terrible. Pashi said, hand over his mouth as if afraid the laugh would spill out his lunch. You didn't think it was his last laugh, but now every time you remember, you still hear that exact sound. Soft round reel, unlike anyone else. You sit alone after work. No one in the room notices. The oil lamp is almost out. The smell of mixed lime and burnt bread still lingers under your fingernails. You look down at the floor, where he used to rest his feet while softly singing at night. That spot has a tiny circular dent, like the mark a foot leaves from standing too long when no one's watching. You kneel down. Your index finger trembles from exhaustion, but you still touch the earth, drawing each letter as if writing on your own skin. The first letter is crooked. The second letter shakes. The last letter nearly gets covered by sand as you lift your hand. P-R-S-H-I. No pattern, no border, no divine frame, just a name, written in dirt. You look at it for a while, then erase it. Not because you're afraid someone will see, not because of Tet, but because you know Pashi wouldn't like someone seeing his name in the place he used to. Fart every night. You chuckle. Use your palm to smooth the dirt again. The ground isn't as flat as before, but you don't fix it. I didn't keep your name, but the earth already remembers. You lie down. Your eyes have been sore all day, not from crying, but from dust, from fatigue, from too many things you've held back since Pashi stopped existing as a person and became only a hollow space. The room is still full of breathing, full of shifting bodies, but you feel like you're lying alone. You turn your face to the wall. The old straw is still rough. Your back still aches, but this time, something inside you is no longer resisting the stone, but curling into it. You close your eyes, focus on your breath. For the first time in weeks, you breathe slowly, not to live, but to listen. And then, tap. A tiny sound. Tap. Another one. You don't open your eyes, because you know no one in the room is tapping. No one has a hammer in hand. No one works at this hour, but you still hear it. A sound, like someone is knocking on the stone. A slow rhythm, steady, exactly the way Pashi used to do, when he no longer had the strength to speak. You don't ask, don't fear, just shut your eyes tighter and whisper in your mind, I know you're not far, you're just tapping softly, so I'll know. You remember. You think today is just an ordinary day. You wake up early, comb your hair with your fingers, wash your face with water from the communal well, where pigeons usually bathe first. You walk through the market to see if anyone's selling cheap grapes today. And then you hiccup. A small hiccup right in the middle of the square, right as the priest overseer of the sacrifice walks by. He turns around, frowns. You try to smile. A friendly smile, like I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not even smuggling salt, but it's too late. A hand the size of a table leg slams onto your shoulder. Citizens are not allowed to make strange noises near the temple of Jupiter, the guard says. You think he's joking. He's not. You want to ask again, what law did I break? It was just a hiccup, but you quickly realize, in Rome laws don't need to make sense. Someone just needs power, and you don't. You don't have relatives in the Senate. You don't have a temple membership card. You don't have money to slip into the guard's palm like the grape sellers do every morning. You only have yourself, and yourself here is a very poor choice. In Rome, justice is a theater. You don't have to do wrong. You just need to look like someone who might. And you, with tired eyes, crooked tunic, and a hint of garlic on your breath, fit the role perfectly. That's it. no trial, no witnesses, no interpreter, because everything is already defined by social standing, and your standing is beneath the studded sandal of a Roman guard. You are tied up with goat leather straps, the kind used in last week's execution. 2 Roman guards, one with a tattooed chicken on his forehead, one with curly hair and a deep hatred for poetry, push you along. They don't explain. They don't have to. You who just this morning thought of eating honey cakes are now walking through the crowd like someone already dead, just not fallen yet. You are pushed in broad daylight, not like a dangerous criminal, more like a small stain no one wants to touch. You pass through the Roman Forum, where everything is paved with stone except human hearts. A wine vendor stops yelling. A child is pulled into their mother's arms as if you're the plague, not a person. You pass the temple of Mars, the god of war, victory, and silence. The bronze statue looks at you with empty eyes. No judgment, no pity. Just looks like it has seen thousands like you and remembers no name. An old woman peeling radish by a column corner avoids your gaze, but you swear she muttered, "Another one." The soldier's footsteps echo iron nails punching the stone road as if to underline every step away from humanity. And then you see it. The massive iron door, low, cold, thick, like the belly of Pluto himself opened wide to welcome you in. This is the Tullianum, the prison, the dungeon, where Julius Caesar once executed traitors, where there are no windows, only damp stone walls and whispers. You stand before the dungeon door. It doesn't creak. It just opens like a stone mouth yawning. A way down, a short staircase, a musty smell. You hesitate half a second. Wonder maybe I'll get out. Someday. Then you laugh, soundlessly. The kind of laugh you're not sure is amusement, or surrender, or not. But at least, tonight I don't have to pay rent. One last thought before the darkness swallows you. It's not that the light disappears. It's that you disappear from the light's part of the world. A guard says the only sentence you'll hear all day, no screaming. The stone walls here can hear. The door closes behind you, not loud, but deep. A sound like goodbye light. You've been taken. No court, no trial, no idea when you'll be out. And now you are here, eyes not yet adjusted to the dark, heart pounding like it's apologizing to your liver. And somewhere in the corner, a soft scratch from something with claws. Welcome. You're the newest member of the Tullianum dungeon, where a single night lasts longer than anything you ever knew of time. As your eyes begin to adjust to the darkness, you realize 2 things. First, this room smells like ancient moss soaked in sacred urine. Second, you're not alone. Your cellmate is named Lucius. No introductions, no nameplate. Just that you were about to sit in the corner when a rasping noise erupted like a sinus-infected dragon. Lucius was lying there wrapped in a piece of cloth that couldn't quite be identified as a tunic, a blanket, or what was left of his skin. Lucius opens his eyes. Not fully awake, just what his eyes do when someone crosses the moss border. He looks at you, says nothing, just nods like, "Yep." Another one, not surprised. You whisper, "What for?" Lucius shrugs, suspected of smiling when the emperor walked by. You're not sure if it's a joke or not. In Rome either leads to prison. You ask again, "How long have you been here?" Lucius doesn't answer right away. He furrows his brow not from remembering, but as if that question had expired. Has the moon still been rising from the left side of the wall lately? You stay silent, unsure if this is a memory test or early onset delusion. Lucius nods. I came in when bread was still 2 denarii, when guards wore real bronze armor, when rats still feared men. You don't know whether to be impressed or afraid. He doesn't laugh, doesn't tell it like a story, just says it like someone talking about flood season coming early. Want to survive? Don't sleep before the rats do. Don't touch the 3rd stone from the right, the coldest one. A man named Titus used to be under it, and if water drips steadily on your forehead, be grateful. That spot doesn't have lice yet. You pick a corner, not because it's dry, but because it seems like the only one Lucius hasn't marked. You lean against the wall, the stone cold like a goodbye that doesn't explain itself. Each breath you exhale adds another layer of fog to air that already has no color. Lucius stirs again, then starts snoring. Not rhythmic, not consistent, like someone chanting the names of gods but forgetting the words. From the corner, there's a scratching sound, a very faint sound, but in total darkness, every sound has the right to become the protagonist. A rat, big, very big. You swear it nodded at Lucius. You pull your feet in. It backs away, slowly as if yielding the space but keeping the deed. Lucius speaks without turning his head. You know about it yet. You don't need to ask what it is. In prison, anything that's not you, is it? Lucius continues, voice like wind seeping through cracks in the wall. A rat, pitch black, scarred back, tail broken like a Roman numeral. They call it Mercurius because it delivers messages, but only to those who don't ask. You hold your breath. Lucius explains someone once wrote a letter on a scrap of cloth, tied it to its belly with a strand of hair. 3 days later, his daughter, in Trastevere, got the message. In a dream, you start to ask, so what does that mean? But Lucius raises a hand, as if explaining would break the magic. Not everyone sees it. Only those about to not need to see anymore. You shiver, not from the cold, but from the thought that rat might be carrying someone's last words every night down a crack in history. Lucius whispers, if you see it tonight, don't shoo it. Speak one word, just one, and let it carry it. You whisper, and if it doesn't come, then maybe you still have time. You don't know how much of it he made up, but here in the dark truth matters less than how much it convinces you. You sit silently, back still cold, eyes still open, and your hand touches something. Not moss, not dried blood, but a carved mark, not large, not clear, but deep. A blade mark dug into the stone, as if someone left their final fingernail behind here. You trace its lines, rough, crooked, but firm. 12 days, no one came. I still remember the taste of figs. Forgive Father, and myself. Lucius says, as if reading your thoughts. People who stay long usually leave something behind. A name, a story, or just an apology they never had the chance to say. You look around. Now you see the entire room is a paperless journal. Some parts just 3 dots. Some are symbols. Some are slashes, but repeated like someone writing Morse code with fear. You ask Lucius, you didn't write anything. He smiles for the first time. Not joyful, but real. I'm not ready to be remembered. You press your cheek to the wall, not from cold this time, but because you think, maybe on the other side there's still a voice, not clear, not loud, just the idea that someone was here, and you, by sitting in the right spot, heard them for the last time. You're still not asleep, but for the first time you don't feel entirely numb. You think, maybe I'm used to it now. After living with Rat's Moss Lucius and the scratched up writings on the wall, you thought nothing in this prison could surprise you anymore, biologically speaking. Then you see the bucket, lying in the corner, sitting 2 levels lower than your self-respect, and it smells like a cow once despaired in it, then reincarnated into a failed sausage. Lucius points at it without turning his head. Don't mix them up. That's the toilet. The thing next to it is the rice bowl. One mistake and you'll be disgusted for life. The first meal is delivered by throwing it on the floor. A lump of black bread. Not soft, not fragrant, not entirely confirmed to be bread. When it hits the stone, it bounces, like it tried to escape but had no legs. You pick it up, take a bite. A small sound echoes in your head, like a chipped tooth softly weeping. Good Lucius says. If it's still hard, it's not mouldy yet. Around here, that's the freshness standard. You ask Lucius, half joking, was this food ever someone else's? He doesn't laugh. Nothing here belongs to anyone. It's just the last person to use it didn't have time to object. You inspect the bread more closely. There's a dent on the edge, like someone once took a bite then had it yanked away mid-chew. Lucius notices your look. Once I saw the same loaf return after 4 days, harder, warmer, like it had accepted its fate. And the bucket. You think about touching it. Then you see a small carving near the bottom. Not clear, but still a name. Gellius, with 3 faded tally marks. Lucius says quietly, that guy sat exactly where you are. Kept that bucket for 3 days. On the 4th day, they forgot the water. On the 5th day, he didn't need the bucket anymore. You pull your hand back. Reflexively, you scoot your leg away too. The only thing you own in here is something someone else left behind when they stopped owning themselves. Night falls. You reach for the blanket. Not a blanket. Just a thick grey cloth, heavy with stench and cold, like a sentencing council's decision. You don't know what it once was. Scrap cloth goatskin or someone's cloak. Lucius says, that used to be the coat of a deserter. 12 nights in here. The 13th, he vanished. No one saw him leave. But the coat stayed behind. You curl up. Your head hits stone. The blanket drapes across your chest. The bucket sits beside you quiet like a beast that's full. You don't think about freedom. Don't dream of sunlight. You only think, I want to hold a bar of soap again. Not to wash. Just to remember what it felt like to be clean. You say to Lucius, I dream of terry towels. He chuckles. Sadly, I dream of sandals. Soft straps. Not the kind that scrape your heel like the wooden ones here. I've never owned a pair. Just saw them once by the bathhouse door. Some man stepped out wet feet, cinnamon scent rising from his towel. I didn't look at his face, just stared at the sandals, then went back and dreamed. You pull the blanket up to your neck. It's rough, scratchy. But this time, you decide to shake it out a little because it's cold and because there's something lumpy in the fabric corner. A black thread, hand-stitched, crooked, but undeniably real. No name, no address, just a sentence. Don't let my child forget me. You stare at the line, like staring at a breath stretched across centuries. Lucius says softly, everyone here once had a sentence. Whoever held the blanket kept it. You fold it up, gently, not to stay warm, but to keep a stranger you've never met from disappearing. You close your eyes, head still on stone, chest still cold, but now you have something softer to lean on. Not the blanket, not the words, but the belief that someone once feared being forgotten. And today you read their name, even if only once. You lie on your side, your back against the stone floor. The damp moss quietly clings to your hair like a moldy greeting. You ate half the bread loaf, not because you were hungry, but because chewing helps you forget where you are. Lucius is asleep, or temporarily dead. The way he lies, one hand over his chest, one hand hugging the wall, makes you not want to check. Night in a Roman prison isn't like an ordinary night. It's not fully dark, not fully quiet. It's like a beast growling low in its throat, undecided whether to attack or leave. Dripping sounds from the ceiling. Plink, plink. Then it stops. Then another drop falls from a different corner, even though you know for certain the ceiling has no corners. A draft blows from somewhere, uneven, irregular. It passes through the stone cracks like it's learning how to speak with breath. A creaking sound echoes from somewhere, like a metal door. But your door is locked, and the surrounding cells have been empty since last year. You strain your ears, not out of fear, but because your brain craves some kind of logic to believe you're still awake. Lucius sits up, not because of the sounds, but because of himself. I dreamed it again. You don't ask what dream. Here dreams aren't for sharing, but for enduring. But Lucius shares anyway. I was standing in the backyard. My mother was watering the plants, her sleeves soaked up to the elbows. I called Mom, but she didn't turn around. I called again. Finally she turned, but had no face. Just a cloth embroidered over her face. My son is learning silence. I've seen that dream once a month, since I could count months. He lies back down, smiles, not happy, not sad, just tired. You're almost asleep. Not the peaceful kind, but the kind where you softly tip over the edge of collapse. Your body heavy like stone. Your mind drifting as if someone's pulling it by a thread, and you don't bother resisting. And then you hear it. Alias, a whisper, soft, but close to your ear. You open your eyes. No one's near. Lucius still faces the wall. The rat, if it's still around, is dead silent. Again, alias. This time you're certain it came from above. But your name isn't Alias. You've never known anyone named Alias. Never even thought of that name. And so, it's all the more terrifying. You shut your eyes, not to sleep, but to block the sound. Not because it's loud, but because it's calling you by a name that could be yours if you stayed here long enough. Morning hasn't come, but you ask Lucius, "What time is it?" Lucius doesn't answer right away, just stares into the void like searching for an hour hand in the dark. "I used to think I'd been here 2 months," he says. "Then one day the guard called me by my old name. The one I changed back in year 3. You want to ask third year of what? Lucius smiles. That's the thing. In prison, there are no years, just long nights and longer ones. He shares, I once lived through a day, just one, when the sun rose through the vent 7 times. And there were nights. I blinked once, and when I opened my eyes, my hair had grown longer. You fall silent. Check your fingernails. Unsure if they were shorter yesterday. They say time is the one thing no one can take from you. Wrong. Here time isn't taken. It's stretched, torn, chewed up, and spat back at you like a strange bone. You shut your eyes, not to sleep, but to memorize some imagined hour, just to believe that tomorrow will be different from today, even if all the days after wear the exact same mask. It's just the light leaking through a crack in the wall. And your name isn't on the roll call. You don't know if you actually slept. You just know that when you opened your eyes, the light had slipped into the room. Not the kind of dawn you read about in poetry. Not warm, not golden, no birdsong. Just a pale bluish streak seeping through the crack like a worn-out nerve. You lie still, not wanting to confirm you're still alive, because that might not be good news. Lucius still faces the wall. You can't tell if he's still awake or has already turned to dust in the folds of time. You push yourself up. Your spine creaks like expired furniture. No knock on the door. Only the sound of footsteps dragging along the hallway, creaking, even, unhurried, as if the one walking knows no one's escaping. A guard's voice rings out, tired like someone who's reviewed tax records all night. Marcus, Gaius, Valeria, your name isn't called. You stand step closer, wait, and then, Alice. You speak softly, Alias, with an I. I'm Alias. The guard looks at you, says nothing, just flips the paper, stained, curled at the edges. Writes something in the margin with smudged ink. Doesn't correct your name, just draws a faint line. Unclear whether it's a mark or a strike-through. You ask quietly, can you fix it? Just the spelling. Fix it for what he replies. No one here is calling your name anyway. And that's it. You step back, stand still like before, but not quite the same anymore. Lucius chuckles softly. That eye, it's like a tail. Lose it, and no one knows what kind of creature it is anymore. The guard keeps calling names. Quintus Septimus. No response. Calls again. Quintus. Anyone know this guy? Third time. Still silence. Finally, the guard flips the book, strikes it out, murmurs. Probably didn't make it. But if the name's still on the list, we still got a call. Lucius whispers. He's been dead 3 years. But since no one signed anything, his name still sits among the living. You shiver, not from the cold, but from the question that pops into your head. If I disappear tonight, who'll answer when they call? You return to your spot. No one mentions you. No one asks again. You lean your head on the wall. The light is thin as a scratch on a stone wall worn smooth by time. And you start, repeating your name in your head. Alias, Alias, Alias. At first it's clear, then a bit strange, then foreign. Like a word in another language you once memorized, but are no longer sure what it means. Lucius notices, doesn't laugh. I used to do the same. Every morning I'd say my name 3 times. On the 17th morning it sounded off. Why does that name no longer feel like me? You don't reply. You're busy holding yourself together. Alias. Alias. Each repetition dulls the syllables in your mind a little more. You close your eyes, not to sleep, but to hold on to that word, like you're keeping the last warmth of someone who just left. When the light is just strong enough for you to tell your feet from their shadow, breakfast has arrived. No one brought it in. No bell rang. No dear guest, please enjoy your meal. It's just there, a loaf of bread on a piece of old cloth, as if someone had placed it down with very polite hesitation. Today's bread, still the same one. No one's sure if it's new bread or just old bread repositioned. You pick it up. Its crust is as rough as the nape of a depressed old soldier. And then you see a small mark carved into it. Not from impact, not from rats. It's a shape. An open circle with two small lines inside, as if someone once tried to leave their name, in flour and desperation. Before you can ask, Lucius says quietly, without looking, some people, before they die, scratch a mark onto their last meal, not to be remembered, but to remind themselves they once had a final moment. You don't reply. You just rotate the loaf. Read the rest of the story that person didn't get the chance to finish. Lucius takes his portion, breaks it in half, eats one half. The other, he doesn't eat, doesn't hide it, just silently walks to the corner of the room where a rat had passed by the night before. He places the piece of bread down, gently, no words, like someone who has lost too much and no longer has anyone to share with, except the one thing still breathing beside him. You don't ask, because you know, in prison, the things placed down without explanation are usually the most important. A moment later, the rat arrives. It's in no rush, doesn't sniff too hard, doesn't hesitate, just nibbles, slowly, calmly. Then, looks at you. That look doesn't say, "Got more," it asks. See what's left is still a form of presence. You look at your own piece of bread, not moldy, not crumbling. No mark scratched into it, no rat bite yet. You could eat it, you should eat it. Your stomach is sending Morse code. Help me. But you lower the bread, not because you're full, not to save it. It's just that for the first time you think, I don't need to prove I'm alive by chewing. Lucius says nothing, just glances at the untouched bread, then at you. Then nods like a priest who's finally seen his follower understand the sermon without needing to preach. You lean back against the wall. Light shines on the loaf, making it look a bit like a quiet ceremony for someone not quite dead. You think, if I eat it, I'll feel the hardness. If I don't, I'll feel the stillness. You choose stillness. Lucius smirks. Welcome to the next stage of hunger. So hungry, you don't even want to swallow. You laugh. For the first time in hours, you truly laugh, though not from joy. There's a rattling sound in the hallway. Someone else's breakfast is on its way. You look at the remaining bread. It hasn't been eaten, hasn't been hidden. It just lies there, like you. And you begin to wonder, am I about to die? Or are the rats holding a private meeting on personnel? Everything becomes too quiet. No more crumbs being chewed. No more Lucius snoring like a smoky furnace. No more dripping from the ceiling, or if there is, it falls like it's trying level 4 yoga. You look to the corner. The rat, the one you once thought was a side character in your life script, is still there. But it's not eating, not moving, not performing, just sitting. You nudge Lucius rat. Glitched out or what? Lucius narrows his eyes in that I've seen this before, and I don't like how it ends kind of way. If a rat goes quiet, then either I, there's an earthquake coming, B, someone's about to get sentenced, or C, the rat is just disappointed in us. And then it happens. The rat stands up. You didn't think rats could be solemn, but this one is. It nods. Once, then again. No blinking, no scratching, no stuttering. You whisper, it nodded. It just nodded. Lucius nods too, as if by primal instinct I saw it. I hate that I saw it, but I did. The rat sits back down, turns to face the wall. Kind of like I've said what I needed to say. No further comments. Lucius mumbles his voice like an epitaph. Last time I saw a rat nod, the guy next to me got released. You seriously, Lucius, released from life? Proper, quiet, no refunds. You laugh like someone who's just been told they're tonight's special on Hades' dinner plate. Then stop laughing because the rat is still looking. Not blinking, not frowning, just staring like I know what you're thinking. And I'm disappointed. Lucius gazes off into the distance 3 years ago. All the rats vanished in one night. No footsteps, no crumbs missing, no droppings. Next morning, guards came in, called names, no one answered. Then they dragged someone out. His seat's been empty since, but the food still comes. You sit, you shiver. You start believing rats are a network, not an animal. You stare at the rat. It licks its left paw. You take note. Then decide you must decode this. You pull a piece of charcoal from the mouldy wall. Right on the stone, sitting still, awaiting signals beyond human grasp. One nod. Someone's about to be chosen. 2 nods. List has been updated. Left paw lick. No bread today. Right paw lick. Willing to share power. Blink. Dislike stupid questions. Pulls leg in. Requesting to disappear. Lucius looks at you, lips pressed, like he's deciding whether to call for mental help. What are you doing? You writing a textbook. Subject, rodent emotional semiotics. Lucius good. The moss talking phase is next. I prefer mold. Mold's more honest. You don't argue. You're busy adding nod plus side glance. Emergency signal. Turns away. Deep disappointment or emotional damage. You sit next to your newly drafted code sheet, feeling safe, like, if the rat does anything weird, at least you'll know why, or at the very least what to call it. You fall asleep, not from peace of mind, but because your body no longer has the energy to translate another signal. The rat's still sitting, quiet, as if it's writing its own report about you. And you start to wonder, do I still exist? Or am I just a mispronounced incantation? This morning, the guards come again, calling names, again, like some divine delivery service for the god of death. Gaius, Valeria, Tullius. You wait. You wait like someone about to be called up for a vaccine. But then, nothing. You clear your throat, I don't have a name. The guard flips the list, glances quickly, not seeing it. Could be a data error. You, I'm right here. Him you are. but the paper doesn't say so. You go back, not angry, just feel like an unsent email marked as read. Lucius looks at you like you've been deleted from the system without a confirmation prompt. Congrats. You're now an undocumented living person, a beta tester. Might still have bugs. That night you dream. Alias, a voice whispers. No idea who, no idea where from, but it's familiar. Familiar like your principal calling your name wrong at graduation, but still dragging you on stage. The next morning you're worried, not because of the dream, but because that voice kind of sounded like Lucius. You stare at Lucius eating bread like it might respond to legal questioning last night. Someone whispered my name. Sounded really familiar. Lucius Chews looks at you slowly, like he's buffering on weak Wi-Fi. You mean, I'm your dream's voice actor. I didn't say that. But if you opened the vent and whispered at 3 a.m., I'd like the shift schedule. Lucius sighs, gives you that I've seen Mad Men, but never one this committed kind of look. I wouldn't bother you. And if it were me, I'd pronounce alias properly, using IPA. Last night's voice stressed the wrong syllable. Disrespectful. You admit that makes humiliating sense. That afternoon you decide to mark your existence, not through law, not through ID, but with bread. You chew half the loaf to soften it, then use a crumb like an organic stylus to write your name on the wall. A-E-L-I-U-S. You sit back, admire it. Beautiful. Not aesthetically, but beautiful, like someone scrawling "help me" in ketchup on rice paper. Then the rat runs up. No greeting, no asking. Just chomps the I, gnaws off the U, munches the S. You freeze like a sculptor watching his statue get pooped on by a pigeon. Lucius doesn't look up. The universe has responded. You with teeth is this physical feedback. Lucius, maybe the rat doesn't like your handwriting, or it's correcting your name to match Latin phonetics. You look at the wall. What's left AEL, you're now ale. Sounds like a background harpist in an Egyptian myth band. You sigh. For the first time, you don't know who to blame, the rat Lucius, or yourself, for believing bread could be a valid form of identity verification. You lie down, your hands still sticky with crumbs. Your name, once complete, now rests in the stomach of a multilingual yet emotionally unavailable rat. And you think to yourself, if someone whispers my name again tonight, I'll ask for a spelling check before responding. That morning you wake up. No one calls your name. No one knocks. No one leaves a piece of bread with a rat's toothprint. You're not upset. You just look around and realize you are an unsaved file waiting to be manually deleted. You decide if no one schedules me, then I, as a purpose-driven citizen, will schedule my own departure. You draw a chart on the wall using charcoal and the last few drops of trust you have left. Lucius steps up, looks at the chart, nods like a judge in the preliminary round of a philosophy beauty pageant. I appreciate your organizational spirit, but it's a bit dry. You need emotional highlights. You ask suggestions. Lucius pulls a leaf-shaped moldy mushroom from the crack in the wall, decorate with fungus. Mushrooms have tones, deep greens, greyish yellows, soft purples if properly aged. I call them introspective spores. You ponder and nod. If death is an event, then it deserves invitations and a well-designed bulletin board. So you write an invitation. Invite. An unforgettable event, because no one comes back to tell. Alias cordially invites you. Lucius Moschka Rat. Whoever's still awake to attend the scheduled disappearance ceremony. Friday after roll call, before disillusionment hour. Left corner of the wall, next to the bucket dress code. Somber, clean, no messy hair. Bread is shared. No pre-biting. Lucius reads it, nods. I'll try to make it, unless I'm busy dying that day. The rat nibbles the corner of the invite. You note viewed, not confirmed, has engaged. Next, you add a side panel. Lucius suggests attaching a heart-shaped mushroom for Friday. You agree. It looks romantic to death, literally. You take 3 steps back, admire the setup. The prison wall now resembles the event board of a tastefully curated, fading into oblivion festival. You lie down, exhale. Tell yourself, if I vanish, I'll vanish with concept. And if anyone comes after, at least they'll see I planned this properly. You don't hear bread drop. Don't hear the guards walk. Don't hear the rats breathe. You only hear yourself panicking in a highly organized fashion. Near dawn, you wake up, not because of sound, but because of the absence of it. No rats, no guards, no Lucius rolling around in dream dough, just you, and a suspiciously polite silence. You sit up, wait a bit, then clear your throat. I just want to confirm, I'm still here, okay everyone? Silence. Walls don't respond, rats don't nod. Lucius doesn't bother to open his eyes. You nod to yourself, then continue like you're hosting a neighborhood meeting. My name is Alias. I am still alive, by heartbeat standards. If anyone could confirm, even a glance would do. Lucius yawns. You're the first person I've seen. Take roll call in the void. Very proactive. You sit back down, eyes on Lucius, now looking at him like he holds the Wi-Fi password and refuses to share. Lucius, do you know anything? Lucius still lies like an untested wax statue. Know what? You this silence. Is this the unplugging phase? Lucius, I know there's a schedule, but there were no subtitles. Handwritten, in Latin. Too lazy to translate. You what if my name's on it? Lucius shrugs. Then, I'd suggest doing your hair that day. Still unsatisfied, you glance at Lucius's feet. A new loaf of bread unshared, not fragrant, but packaged. You mumble, got it. People with appointments don't starve. That night you sleep, not deeply, not normally. You dream of watching yourself sleep. You number 1 sitting, you number 2 lying down. Both of you know. Something's wrong, but neither wants to deal with it. You number 1 sighs, bends down, writes alias using imaginary bread. You Nasha 2 snores softly, like just 5 more minutes of life, please. Then both think, if we wake up, is there anything fun? No. Okay, then let's keep sleeping. You wake up, a faint sweat on the back of your neck, your hand gripping the blanket like it's a rejection letter from reality. Lucius is still asleep. The rat still hasn't come. You write a new line on the wall. If I disappear and no one reports it, then fine. But I was here. At least, I knew that. And I once said my name loud and clear. Hannity. And you start to wonder, if the rat is me, then who am I? What is Lucius? And who's in charge of emotional patch updates? That night, after many days of no one calling your name, after all the self-roll calls like a leftover student at after-school detention, after dreaming of watching yourself sleep, finally the rat speaks. Alias. You open your eyes. Not the guards, not Lucius, not an echo from the walls. It's your voice. You look around. No one. You whisper back alias. Identical. Tone breath, the slight quiver on the S. Unmistakable. You look at the corner. The rat is sitting there. Its eyes watching you like it has a psychology degree from a very damp university. The rat says I'm you. You said your name so much. I materialized. And now I need to talk. You're wide-eyed. The rat raises an imaginary paw, adjusts invisible glasses. Hello. We, meaning you, are reopening the position of official inner self, because your original one's been on leave without notice for far too long. Before you can react, the rat mentally unrolls a personalized interview form. When writing your name on the wall with bread. When the rat ate the letter U. When Lucius side-eyed the unshared loaf. All of the above plus the feeling no one remembered the deadline for existing. No. Yes. I'm not sure. I'm asking now. You're finally answering. You go silent. The rat nods. Not with its head, but with the kind of eye contact that says emotional status received. Suddenly, Lucius wakes up, opens his eyes, sees you, sitting across from a rat, monologuing, fully invested, very experimental theatre. Lucius scoots back half a foot, whispers, "Oh, it's the one-man monologue phase. I'm not performing." Lucius, it's okay. I get it. You're not an actor. You're a theatrical phenomenon. The rat's a solid scene partner. I'm communicating with the part of me I abandoned, and it came back in bite-sized form. Lucius, I love your character development. There's arc, there's depth, there's tale. You sigh. The rat says again, interview complete. If you're reselected to be yourself, you'll receive notice in a dream. If not, well, you'll still be you. But with no reply. Lucius beautiful. I respect this production. If there were a stage, I'd book you. Suggested title, Me and My Rat, in a season where no one remembers I was here. You lower your head, no laughter, no sadness. Just, for the first time in many nights, you feel like you're in conversation. Even if it's with a rat, even if it's in your own voice, even if Lucius thinks you're defending a thesis in applied monologue theory, and you think it ate my bread, chewed my name, used my voice, but at least it lives honestly. This morning you sit and look at the rat, not afraid, not curious, just observing it like watching a simpler version of yourself. The rat doesn't worry about being called, doesn't draft a death schedule, doesn't send disappearance invitations, doesn't need its presence confirmed. It simply exists, steady, real. You glance at Lucius, still drawing mandalas with mushrooms on the wall. Then you look back at the rat. You softly, I think. If one of us gets to go on, maybe it should be you. The rat doesn't respond, still licking its paw like it just heard something profound and chose silent appreciation. You don't run. Don't overreact. Don't try to understand life. And you've never disappointed anyone because no one expected anything from you. Lucius looks up. You're monologuing to the rat again. You know, this time it's a will. Lucius, you're leaving your life to the rat. You nod. Lucius, you think it'll accept. You, at least, it won't misspell my name. It won't eat just the I. And if it does, it'll eat all of it, cleanly. You lower your head. Pick up the bread. Break it in half. Place one half in front of the rat. If I disappear, remember, you were given a share, and I chose you. The rat lifts its head, looks at you, looks at the bread, doesn't eat, just nods once. Lucius watches the scene, claps softly, the kind of clap at the climax of an art film. Then mutters, I don't know who'll survive, but if the rat tells this story later, I hope it keeps your tone of voice. You don't say anything else. Just sit quietly. And for the first time in this cycle of repeating days, you're not trying to prove you're alive, because now you have someone to live instead. And you think the issue isn't who gets to live, but who gets chosen, when no one signed up anymore. That morning the door opens. For the first time in who knows how many days of no roll call, no knocks. The door latch clicks like a slow applause at the end of a play no one watched. A guard steps in. Doesn't say hello. Doesn't bring bread. Just stands in the middle of the room. Looks at you, looks at Lucius, then looks at the rat. He says only one of you gets to leave. You blink. Lucius looks up like, I didn't think I was still part of the active roster. The rat still sits, still calm. You ask who's the two. The guard doesn't answer, just repeats, slower like addressing people waking from philosophical slumber. One person goes, one stays. The choice is yours. Lucius turns to you, you and the rat. You mutter, I think so. I already gave my life to it. Lucius, so now you go. You know, I think it deserves it more. The guard looks at you like you're the only one in the room bold enough to mess up the script. He says, you're choosing. You look at the rat. The rat looks back, nods. No asking. No waving, just a nod, like yeah, I'll go. You lean down, gently lift the rat with both hands like holding a soul. Hand it to the guard. The guard furrows his brow slightly, doesn't object, just turns around. Carries the rat like carrying an important item without a barcode. Lucius claps, not loudly, just one beat, like scene end. You stand still, hands empty, so is your chest, but you feel light in a way that can't be explained. You ask where's it going. The guard doesn't speak. The door closes. No lock, no click, just quiet. You sit down. Lucius, you okay? You, I don't know. Lucius want to write something. You know. I think. The part of me that writes my name left with it. You look at the wall, where Alias once was, inbred. Now only the damp mark of something once gnawed, once existed. You breathe, not deeply, not calmly, just the kind that says right now, is just me, and nothing left to prove. No one calls my name, but I still exhale each night. And that is how I quietly exist, like an ending that needs no punctuation. After that day, your room feels larger, not because someone rebuilt it, not because you cleaned, but because the rat left, and with it some part of you had been chosen instead. You no longer take roll, no longer call out, no more writing your name into bread, no more talking to shadows, no longer waiting for Lucius to nod on your behalf. You're not sad, not joyful. You become the wall. Each evening you sit. No journaling, no lists, just watching the mushrooms grow and counting your heartbeat, not to check if you're alive, but to witness a kind of stillness. Lucius sometimes asks, do you regret it? You know, because now I don't need a name to be alive. Lucius, then who'll tell this story? You shrug if no one. Then maybe the mushrooms, or the wind, or the rat. Night falls. You lie down, not curled, not stretched, just fitting, inside the shadow of yourself. You no longer dream of yourself, no longer hold dialogues with your own voice, no longer ask, who am I? You only wonder, will I be able to sleep tonight? And then you hear a sound, so faint, so thin, not a call, not a word, just a breath from somewhere in the wind gently humming. No one needs to remember your name. No one needs to carve your face. Only that you knew you once sat here, and that is enough. You exhale, not to feel lighter, but as if to agree. No need for applause, no need for nods, no need for documents of proof. Only a night where you're not afraid to wake up.